Okay, welcome to this submission for AGDQ 2021. I'm Joseph, Joestar316, and I present to you this time with Metal Gear Solid 2 Substance on PC, running the VSFix mod, which is mainly a mod for, game optimization and stabilization purposes. We are going to run the full game on EuroExtreme, on New Game Plus, which will allow us to skip certain cutscenes in the plant when we meet up with Stillman in Strut C, as well as getting an alternate bomb pattern in Strut D, as well as other benefits which we'll cover later. But it'll be run on EuroExtreme with radar turned off. I will attempt to go for Big Boss. I don't anticipate getting it, but running the game without radar is required, in addition to running it on that difficulty, as well as either on Extreme or EuroExtreme choices. And we're going to run on Not Game Over if Discovered. It's preferred to run it on this difficulty for conditions. Allows you to manipulate the guards in a way where it's more beneficial for speedrunning. Game Over if Discovered makes it so that for every time a guard notices and detects you outright, it gives you a Game Over screen. It is possible to run it this way, but for today we're just going to stick with Not Game Over if Discovered, and the timer starts as soon as the auto splitter kicks in right here. Alright, so starting on the tanker, it's the prologue to the Metal Gear Solid 2. Starting off as Snake, trying to infiltrate into the inner holds on intelligence of a new type of Metal Gear being developed, and we're to obtain pictures of it and then upload it to our sidekick support, Otacon, our beloved Otacon. So we're just gonna make our way down, or actually no, we're gonna make our way up to the navigation deck to figure out where the ship is going, and then later make our way to the holds. So, fun facts about running on EuroExtreme. It is an alternate difficulty form of regular Extreme. I believe it was on a regional release format where some editions of the game only had Extreme, and other editions had EuroExtreme. And eventually, on editions like HD Collection, they kind of marry the two together where all the difficulties are kind of united. You know, everybody has access to them. So the benefits on... or not benefits, but like the attributes of running on EuroExtreme is... guards see farther away, you take more damage than normal. Your ammo is identical to Extreme, but your tranquilizer rounds do not last as long on guards. But anyways, before we get into more of that, we're gonna go up against our first boss fight with Olga, who has a 50-50 RNG condition of which way she goes in her spawn, whether if she spawns left or if she spawns right.
Conflict and victory were my parents.
Ideally, you want her to spawn left, which allows you to get an opportunity to loop her before she gets into her dialogue, but unfortunately I did not get that, as she spawned right.
I have no one, nothing except the unit.
Okay, so we just gotta get one more hit.
To me.
Okay, so that wasn't ideally the best Olga to get, but like I said, for the most part, your outcome with Olga on this difficulty is mainly attributed to RNG, which way she goes. If you get a loop where you can actually get a headshot before she starts her dialogue, you can actually neutralize her in 4 shots to the head. Saves you like 10 to 12 seconds, depending on, like how you set it up. But for now, we got our USP, which is now needed to descend into the holds. We're gonna fire this shot into the ceiling, which is meant to misdirect that guard while timing it just right to get underneath the camera, and we're gonna do it again here, which is to get this guard to go on his radio, bump into him, gives me plenty of time to make my way back into the cruise lounge. Alright, so that alert is intentional. The plexiglass in the middle will block his retaliation shots against me, which I can follow up with either a shot to the radio or a headshot. Not that big of a deal. And now we're in the engine room. So we're going to do this technique of tranquilizing the guard once and then rolling into them. And the effect of doing that is an instant knockout. So for whatever reason, if you tranquilize a guard ahead of time, and you do something like roll into them, punch, kick them, something where it kind of knocks them off balance, it allows you to get a faster knockout effect versus, you know, repeatedly tranking or having to knock them out yourself. And so the reason for that setup right there with that guard seeing me and then shooting his radio, it makes it so that the room is kind of like in a detection phase, but not quite caution.
Everyone, stay on guard.
And what that does is it bypasses a cutscene you would normally get if you went into that room with the lasers without that condition. You'll see a cutscene of a guard that comes in, repairs the door, so it saves you a couple seconds. Next, what I'm going to do is a very risky tactic, which involves a double hit with the USP, which is meant to stagger the guard so I can close distance on him, followed up by a third tranquilizer shot into a holdup. And what that does is it prevents me from having to spend more than one tranquilizer round to knock out that guard from long distance. It minimizes any like rolling that's involved because unlike Raiden, whenever he cartwheels, you actually gain time slightly, whereas Snake is the opposite. You actually lose little bits of like fractional seconds every time you roll. But now we're in the guard rush, which again has elements of RNG to it, despite the fact that guards come in a very predictable fashion. And it's mainly the guard posted on the right side of this hallway that's random. Mainly because if they blind fire or not, or if they roll out of the side like hallway or not. And there's 8 of them you gotta neutralize with the M9 tranquilizer. And now you might be wondering, well, wait a minute, I just saw you shoot those last 3. I mean, and you're going for no kills. Why didn't that count? Well, the funny thing is, because you shoot those guards so quickly before the encounter ends, their deaths are not registered. So you kind of get away with murder, so to speak. Alright, so I did not get the ladder skip glitch. You can actually do a very precise setup and button inputs where it could skip both of these ladders. But for now, I'm just going to play it safe by just, you know, going down the second ladder normally, and then just making my way through. But getting the ladder skip glitch successfully saves you about 12 to 15 seconds, depending on how you do it. Next, we're going to swap projector screens while sticking up 2 of the guards, followed by a third, which, if you get it quickly enough, you will not turn around. And having to not deal with that guard saves you about a second. Not the end of the world, but just optimizations. So we're finally in the last hole. Ray is in front of us. And you might be wondering, well, you were given specific angles to capture, and one of them being the Marines logo, and I don't see you doing that, so how in the world did you get all 4 photographs? Well, funny thing about that Marines logo, the registry hitbox for that logo is, I mean, yeah, I see the logos, right? I mean, Anacon's giving me the thumbs up. And the other 3 that I took were part of what's called a 2-spot camera capture. You're using one spot to capture the logo and front left, while the second spot, which is off to the right, but somewhat in the middle, is capturing front left, or I'm sorry, front right, and then just facing forward. And the reason why the logo shows up, despite the fact I'm nowhere near that logo, which is on the side of the ray, it's because the logo, like, registry hitbox for the camera is wider than it appears. So for some reason, you could take it from 2 different angles of the room and it'll count. So now we're out of the tanker. We're now taking control as Raiden, where now his objective is to infiltrate the plant. You know, which has some, like, tutorial-like steps to it, which the game teaches you how to log into nodes, how to sneak around guards, using methods like knocking on the walls. But, you know, not much to it, but just kind of just skip through these codecs and demonstrating the first of what's going to be many unique punch-out tactics. So we're going to go all the way to the back to this third guard in the room who's going to revive first over the other two. This codec is just a warning of, like, yep, better get ready. So as he revives, we're just going to grab him quickly, let him go, aim the camera all the way down, and then punch him. And what that did is I actually punched through him and hit his groin hitbox, which is a instant knockout. You know, we're going to be doing that quite a bit throughout this one. It's a very cheeky way of getting a knockout without having to use any weapons. And because of how the elevator is timed on this difficulty, and luring the guard from the front to the back with the guard that was just knocked out, you gain just the right amount of time you need to reach the elevator. And I want to say that method of infiltrating the elevator like that was developed and refined by Tyler 2022 when he was starting to route this category, and he was trying to figure out ways of getting through, and I want to say that he contributed a lot to, you know, like how certain rooms were done, same with the tanker. But yeah, it's definitely interesting, like, what things you can do to get past certain guards, because I'll tell you, getting to those docks casually on difficulties like this is definitely a very intimidating task, but again, the game teaches you to go into hanging mode, but we're not going to do that. We're just going to go 1, 2, knock over this guard, and then just run on through. The game is just trying to tell you, like, yeah, you can go into hanging mode to go around guards, but it takes way too long. You could just cartwheel over the metal tiles, which produce noise if you step on them. You could cartwheel over those, cartwheel into the guard, and actually have enough time to get out before they get up and, you know, report in. But for now, we're just going to make our way to Strut C, where we're supposed to meet up with a bomb defusal expert named Peter Stillman. And we met a guy just now who kind of looks like Snake, sounds like Snake, acts like Snake, but his name is really, you know, Iroquois Pliskin. But we'll just kind of refer to him as Pliskin going forward. But I'll tell you, he kind of does look like Snake, though. Okay, finally in Strut C, finally have a weapon. And this is where the benefit of New Game Plus comes into effect, where on a new game run, you are required to watch this cutscene, which I'm skipping now. And the new game just teaches you how to find the bombs, how to defuse them, how to use the sensor A and coolant spray, and all that stuff. But in New Game Plus and New Game Plus Plus, you can just skip it and, you know, not have to suffer through the, you know, 2.5 minutes of tutorial. So, we finally have our coolant spray and our sensor A, and we're now tasked with going around the plant in a counterclockwise fashion and disarming all of these little bombs. And the reason for going in this particular route with counterclockwise is just given the fact, you know, one, it's a little bit safer to do. You do not have a silenced weapon like an M9. We do not grab the suppressor for this weapon at all, so this weapon is loud. But I'll tell you what's not loud is that guy falling over. Because apparently that guy didn't know what just happened. I mean, it was just the wind, right? I mean, I didn't hear a guy fall over. But the reason for that alert setup is you're making the guard turn as he sees you, and then when you roll forward, they fall backwards to where they're looking, not where you're cartwheeling, which is another method of just you know, getting rid of them. Alright, so we got rid of the bomb on the rooftop, which is added in that location when you're on higher difficulties. On very easy difficulties, you only have to defuse the bomb in this pump room coming up. Which, what you're going to see me do is called a coolant rise, which is equipping and unequipping the coolant as I'm standing, which allows you to skip that animation, which I just failed to skip. And by standing in this precise spot, which is just on the side of that pipe there, it allows you to defuse that bomb, which is normally a tedious task to have to navigate all the way around and then defuse it. But you could do it the faster way, and then just make your way out of there.
Who is that?
Alright, so now, on our way to Strut F. We're gonna shoot out that Cypher while shooting out that guy's radio. Again, we don't want any alerts to happen, because alerts that do happen carry over from one room to the next.
Who is that?
Okay, now we're gonna use that chaff I just threw to basically disable everybody's radio despite the fact that they see me, while at the same time lures both of the guards from down here to upstairs, giving me an opportunity to defuse that bomb, which is normally there on higher difficulties, whereas it's on lower difficulties, it's shifted over to a different spot, and then just make our way out. And now you're going to see me do the coolant rise again, but in a different fashion. So, after you skip these codecs, you're going to see me cartwheel and lay prone to that spot, which is going to pick up a claymore mine, which we want to get rid of for later. And at the same time, use the same coolant rise method to ascend up faster, as opposed to just a normal, you know, ascension. So, the room is in caution. There's only one guard that's a SWAT team member. Thankfully, we don't have to worry about them too much. Next, we're gonna stick up our friend Mo, who is named that way because of what he says when you hold him up. Shoot out all the cameras. And it may look confusing on where to find this bomb because of the way the radar is displaying the sensor, or the bomb odor. But the bomb always shows up in that middle conveyor belt, provided you get there fast enough. So, essentially, you're on a room timer for both the guards and for the bomb to arrive. So, very nicely done in there. Okay, so now we're on the helipad with a Harrier that's parked up here. So now we're going to be doing the same, you know, cartwheel into prone coolant rise to defuse this bomb. And timing this just right allows you to get out of here without the guard that patrols over to see you, while avoiding a second one that patrols from right to left. And just like that, nicely done, heliport. You know, Rose just likes to, you know, chime in now and then, but we just skip through all the codecs. Oops, I forgot to equip the box. Because I was about to demonstrate what the box does for us in this run.
Who is that? Who's there? Who is that?
So, for every guard that notices you on Not Game Over Discovered, if you equip into the box before they try to shoot you, it breaks the guard's line of sight in terms of when they try to fire. They don't really know how to handle it, so they're just scripted to either retreat or pull out the radio. We use this box equip method a lot in this run. And now we're in Strut D, which I consider to be one of the harder rooms in bomb defusal.
I got him.
So I just knocked out 3 out of the 4 guards in a rather quick fashion, which is meant to get me down here fast enough, while at the same time using... Okay, this could be a little dicey, but I'll try my best to salvage this if possible. But I foresee continue on this. But normally the idea is to get down to the lower level as fast as possible before the guard finishes his radio call-in. But I guess what I'm going to do now is kind of hover over to the right. I'm going to let these SWAT guards come in. I'll try to back this up by just tranking them individually. And then try to escape.
Oh! Who's that? Enemy sighted.
Okay, so that wasn't ideal, but I did get out of there without any continues.
Who is that?
Again, there's another example of the box manip. So because I went into box like that,
It's the enemy. I need help.
instead of him trying to shoot at me and then go on the radio sooner, he just falls back to a different position, allowing me to use that to get into the next area before the alert kicks in. The rule about alerts is that even if it's close when you go into the next room, if you hear the buzzer chime, you know, going into the room, it counts. So even if you hear the buzzer chime but do not see the alert script come up on screen, the buzzer is enough for it to actually apply. Yeah, thank you, Mudcrab. Yeah, it's a backup I hope I was never gonna have to make, but you know, sometimes you gotta be able to improvise on the spot. So, we're picking up these chaffs, which is gonna be used for different places later. We're now tasked with going back to Strut A, which is where I started, to defuse the final bomb, which is unlike the Sensor A, but rather Sensor B, which uses a sound-based sensor to locate it, rather than the odor image from the Sensor A device.
Was there a noise just now?
You know, you think they would kind of catch on to that by now, and I feel so bad for that guy. I knocked him over once already. You know, his uniform's soaking wet, he's climbing all the way back up to get back to his patrol, and I knock him over again. But they will be missed. So we pick up Sensor B, not really to use it, but we're required to pick it up in order to advance the story to where you're then told to return to the deep sea dock. You know, otherwise, like, the bomb timer for this will never start. So, because I've memorized where it is, I don't need the sensor, it's just right here. And the thing about Sensor Bs is you can't be too close to them. Otherwise, if you're within a proximity distance, it will blow up. But thankfully, we have a designated railing on the floor that you could use as a reference marker so that you know it's within coolant spray range without, you know, putting yourself in danger. Alright, so now we're going to be going up against Fortune, which is a fight that cannot be won on weapons alone, but instead, we're going to be outmaneuvering her using the same cardboard box. And for whatever reason, whenever you use the cardboard box in this fight, her tracking is it's kind of delayed. You know, she can't really quite get a target lock, so every shot she fires is slightly behind you. And I just do this repeatedly until the fight's over. There is another method of bypassing this without using the box, which is a peeking method with the SOCOM with the clip empty. And what that does is by peeking, it gives you iframes for every time you peek. The only thing I dislike about that method is it's rather risky. The box method is easier to do and it's safer. You know, using the box does not make you go faster, unfortunately. Otherwise, I would use it all the time. But yes, it just works. I mean, it's the power of the cardboard box. I mean, it's there for a reason. So, you're meant to just outlast the fight. It's on a somewhat of a scripted timer. You can't really beat her with weapons. You don't want to shoot any rounds at her, and you'll see a you'll see an animation of the bullet, like, ricocheting off of her. It wastes time. So all you're doing is just waiting out the timer. So now, guess what?
Who's that?
We have to defuse another bomb. Except this time, it's from the man himself, Fat Man. So, we're just making our way now back to the heliport, where we defuse the bomb underneath the Harrier, using the same box unequip and re-equip maneuver.
Are you okay?
Freeze!
While holding up that guard.
Who is that?
And now, this one's gonna be rather tricky, so I'm gonna concentrate for a little bit and then explain it. Okay, there we go. So, what I was trying to do there is follow a specific line on the floor, which is to avoid the mines that are not yet, you know, disassembled, or if you pick them up, while at the same time cartwheeling into a specific...
Send around some reinforcements. There may be someone else here.
There's that buzzer I was referring to. So unfortunately, the trick shot I tried to do to misdirect that guard was shot too early. This is not big boss rank anymore because of that. But the run will go on. And we're now going to go on to the next fight, Fat Man. So, as you can tell, Fat Man loves explosives. And he has a thing for rollerblading. So, we're going to defuse 2 of the bombs at the start while knocking him over to get 2 hits of the tranquilizer into him.
Get out of my way!
And then we're intermixing in the SOCOM with this because it takes 6 rounds to the body to knock him off balance. So that way you can get these headshots in. And then we just do this repeatedly until he goes down. The tricky thing with this fight is his movement. It's rather erratic. There are some things you can do to control it, but at the end of the day, I still believe it's just RNG you're dealing with. But the whole idea is to beat him without him planting any bombs. Which, in this case, we did that. And the final thing, oh no, where could that last bomb be? Well, Fat Man didn't think we were smart enough to look underneath him. But I gotta tell you, I mean, how in the world did he fit that bomb in that suit? I mean, look at this thing. I don't know how he was able to hide that during the fighting. I mean, maybe there's just a very well conspicuous place in that bomber's suit where he put it. But I just remember when I was playing this when I was younger, and I was just freaking out like, oh my god, where's that last bomb? I can't find it. And fun fact, if you wait long enough for the timer to expire, and you call the colonel, you actually get a tip from Rose that actually tells you, oh, did you try looking under, you know, Fat Man's body? And Raiden will actually say, you know, oh, there's no way he could have placed it there. And as it turns out, Rose was right. Okay, so now we have to make our way into the Showon Core, which we're going to need 2 items. One, which was provided to us by a ninja friend, while the other we have to acquire in Strut-F, which is going to be the AKS-74U, which is the assault rifle variant used by the guards in the Corps. And I just somehow triggered a mine without being near it. Okay then, so we're gonna have to wait this out into caution before I enter in here. Otherwise, I won't be able to get out with the AK. Alright, there we go. So, we do this punch-punch-kick buffer, which is meant to give us a reference to when the guard across this hallway is moved, as they have eyes on that stairwell there.
It's the enemy. I need help.
Wow, that was a really good recovery. So, there's different ways of distracting that guard. I tend to use the box as my misdirect. It allows them to relocate themselves while... Okay, my menu got mixed up there for a moment. It allows me to move that guard over, shoot out his radio before the Mayday gets out, and I go out with the AK, now going into Shell 1. And the whole idea for this disguise is to bypass a camera which checks for guards with this gear, as well as the weapon equipped, being this camera.
Huh? Yo! What are you doing?
Oh, didn't you know? We're recording for AGDQ 2021. I don't think they got the note. So, before we go into the core itself to find Ames, the Secret Service agent who has intel on where the president is being held at in here, we're picking up this D mic, which allows us to listen to Ames's pacemaker, which has a unique heartbeat, provided you have the D mic to actually listen for it. Which, as we get in here, this is the next attribute to what New Game Plus does over New Game. In New Game, Ames's location is constant, per the story. However, in New Game Plus, his spawn location in that room is randomized into one out of, let's say, a dozen locations. But before we do that, we're just gonna borrow this guy for a minute, or his eyes, rather.
Retinol pattern recognized. You are cleared to enter.
Oh, thank you, Biometrics Computer. So, we're actually in the core now, where all the hostages are being held, and we're now going to locate where Ames is, and because I've played this game a million times, I know exactly what he looks like.
Hey, you! Just wait a minute!
You're
Hey, you!
Ames, aren't
Just
you?
wait a minute!
You're Ames,
What are
aren't
you up to?
You're Ames, aren't you?
So I just go based on appearance, and because I made the mistake of kneeling down so suddenly, the guards kind of noticed I was doing something strange, and you do not want to unequip the AK when a guard is focused on you. So what I just did there is a backup, which is the D-mic glitch. It's when you do a punch-punch-kick combo while buffering in the D-mic on the kicking sequence. It allows you to hold the D-mic in plain sight of a guard without being detected and, you know, getting a game over screen in there. So it's pretty neat when you have it, and I don't know how that guard just missed me. Wow, I was gifted. Alright, so they found out I'm not really one of the guards, so we now gotta make our way out of here using one of these two chaps I acquired earlier, which is meant to
Who is this?
block their radios, allowing me to escape. Okay, we're gonna shoot out that cipher while taking out the other two before we go back into Strut F for the third time. And one thing to note about that connecting bridge is that when the paneling falls off, at this stage, the panels that are lost are kept that way until the end of the game. So it's worth noting, you know, which ones are missing by the time you come back. Whereas on other difficulties,
Stay on guard. Who is that?
the panels are kept there, such as very easy mode. So we now have the PSG-1 sniper rifle, which is required to, again, advance further into the game while making our way into Shell 2. So again, we're just going to be using the box to our advantage, mainly to avoid that guard that looks around from seeing me.
Who is that?
I need...
And one of the other things that I did in Strut F was I shot a guard's radio as he noticed me. And the reason for that is not only to cancel out the alert opportunity, but rather to refresh the caution bar. Because if you allow it to run out by the time you get here, you risk a SWAT team guard from exiting the area from where you're entering. And if a SWAT team guard notices you, it's an immediate alert. There is no delay for a radio call, unlike the sentries, but just like that, we're now at the connecting bridge where we have to shoot out these bomb sensors. The amount of these are variant on the difficulty, so they gradually add more as the difficulty goes up. So we're just gonna shut out all of these as fast as we can, being very careful on when I shoot these ciphers. The hitbox for the sensor relative to the camera head of the cipher drone is wider than it appears. I can't tell you how many times I've blown up this bridge because I shot the cipher instead of the sensor. But just like that, bombs are disabled, and we go on to the Harrier fight. So we're gonna start off by getting a... Okay, so that was not a 5-hit, but a 3-hit. Which is not the end of the world, it's just gonna go a little bit slower. But the one thing to note about the PC version of MGS2 is that the stinger lag is not present, meaning every time you fire a stinger missile, your game doesn't slow down, which is more noticeable on console editions such as PS3 HD Collection, PS2 Sons of Liberty. However, the X1 version of this game on HD Collection does not have the stinger lag, as it runs on 1080p 60, whereas other editions run on 720p 60 or otherwise 480p 50 Hz. So what we're going to do here is a... Okay, so that was not the double die shot I was looking for, but if you time the cutscene cancel just right, you can actually get in 2 shots there instead of 1.
I'll let you go out in style!
But not the end of the world. So again, you're seeing me use this lean method, or peeking, rather, to avoid the target lock missiles from hitting me. As you're seeing right here. So for every time you peek, you gain iframes, and it allows you to survive that whole missile barrage. Alright, I'm gonna try to see if I can save this with the last 2 hits. Alright, so unfortunately I didn't get it before he went into minigun phase, but I don't know, for the most part, anytime you can walk away from a Harrier fight is a good fight. And just like anytime you make it through that scary jump across the chasm there, with that bridge jump, is a good one to go through. Alright, so now we're going to be crossing this section of the plant. We're be equipping the BDU. And the reason for this is so that when you go into hanging mode here, the BDU provides somewhat of a indirect camouflage where they will not spot you outright here. And as long as you get up here quickly enough while getting onto this ladder, you will not be detected. It is definitely important to note that it is needed to have that BDU equipped. I'm gonna knock on that wall to distract that guard so I don't get spotted. Getting spotted on the Strudel perimeter is different than other parts of the plant. The alerts are instantaneous, and cipher drones come in and actually intercept you here, so you are not able to make your way over.
What? I'm going to go in my pants.
Oh, looks like somebody didn't go on a bathroom break. So we're now making our way into Shell 2 using the second shaft that I picked up earlier on the BC connecting bridge, so that all 4 of these ciphers are disabled. Enough time to make my way in. And it's also important to unequip the BDU before you enter Shell 2. Because for whatever reason, in cutscenes, the BDU kind of lags the game a little bit. The loads are slightly longer. So it is very important to make sure that before you enter Shell 2, you unequip the BDU, save yourself the frustration of losing a couple of seconds. Which, on an interesting note, with the PC version, the time is tracked solely on in-game time, whereas other games have loads calculated into that timer, meaning every time you load into a room, the time is added onto whatever you do in-game. Whereas the PC version excludes loads entirely, at least from the timing perspective. Because not only are the loads faster just from running this on PC, but the loads themselves do not count towards the actual timer that you see on screen. And you'll even notice at times when I'm loading into different rooms, during that transition, the timer stops. And that's just part of the auto-splitter tracking, where it's tracking the timer more accurately per the game like configuration. So we got our Nikita missile launcher, which is going to be used for disabling this circuit box, which is preventing us from going into the room where the president is being held. Since I'm out of Stinger missiles, I'm going to do this a little bit differently, because normally you would fire off a Stinger round to wake up the president, who kind of fell asleep for the run today. So we're the complimentary, you know, alarm wake-up call, you know, courtesy of Raiden of MGS2 Substance, you know, endorsed by the Nikita missile launcher. So we're going to go up to this spot where we can fire into this vent, giving us a quick path into the room. And ever so carefully...
What is that?
Making your way in. And that was actually really nice. I very rarely get it where I don't have to adjust my missile trajectory like that. Sometimes I don't get the angle right, and you gotta, you know, slow the rocket down for a little bit before you let it go at full speed. And now the president is kind of laying everything out. You know, he's telling us what the plant was really about, his role in the affair, arsenal gear, just kind of dropping down a lot of plots. And before I could even finish my sentence, I mean, you know, he was there for a minute, and then, you know, he unfortunately died. You know, Ocelot came in and, you know, knew we were up to something, shot the president. But before he died, he tasked us with finding Emma Emmerich, who is Otacon's, I believe, stepsister, who is responsible for programming the Arsenal Gear GW AI, which is in control of the system that the Patriots are trying to launch. And so part of trying to go up against that is not through arms, but through cyberspace. And having Emma's knowledge along with a virus that we have to upload will help us do that. But there's a few different ways to reach her, and the way that I'm gonna do it is definitely not conventional. So I'm gonna do what's called the swim glitch, where I'm gonna swim on a specific angle, which is gonna get me out of bounds in the water, allowing me to float in the air, if you would. And okay, so fortunately I did get an up input, so I'm gonna go ahead and try that again. This thing is very sensitive, so you gotta get this adjustment just right. So try to get a little bit higher. So okay, I don't know why I'm getting an up input on this, but this is probably one of the hardest things to do, is getting this swim glitch to work just right. So what we're trying to do is go out of bounds of the water and go into this conveniently placed hole in the ceiling. For whatever reason, the developers never put a barrier there, so you can just swim right on through. And I'm swimming right to the door that you normally enter through to get into this room where you fight Vamp, and, you know, just like that, I'm already fighting Vamp. It's a very finicky trick. You gotta get it right the first attempt or so. Otherwise, the amount of time you lose from attempting it would not be that much different than swimming normally. So, now we're up against Vamp, who is probably one of the hardest bosses in the game conventionally, but we're gonna cheese him by just abusing his proximity range with the knife. So as long as you're close, he will keep trying to slash you, and you're just trying to get in as many hits on him as possible while avoiding the knife since it is a one-hit KO. And let me tell you, trying to fight this guy when I was younger was probably one of the things that made me, you know, go down this rough journey of, you know, trying to challenge myself and then rage quitting. You know, because fighting Vamp normally without doing that punch cheese is definitely not a fight you want to do. You know, he jumps around everywhere, he throws knives, they kill you in a hit or two, and it's messy. So before we go visit Emma, we're gonna pick up this body armor, which, for optimization, you could skip that and save 6 seconds, but the body armor cuts damage you receive in half, which is very useful for the late game, when we actually get into Arsenal gear. So, for those 6 seconds, I'm willing to live, you know, with the fact that I have that protection.
Leave me.
Emma, you know we're recording for GDQ, right? Man, she's trying to tell me to leave her. I mean, like, does she know what I was going through to get here? I mean, I'm dodging rockets, fighting Harriers, you know, punching Vamp, you know, swimming through part of the level. You know, there's just not enough appreciation for what I do to rescue her. You know, but that's just part of Emma's sassiness. You know, she's not really as cooperative, but at the same time, she's essential to the mission. So we're just gonna escort her back to Shell 1, where Otacon and Snake are waiting for us. So this part of the run is where things tend to slow down a little bit. You only move as fast as, you know, your movement when you're trying to drag ammo around. And because I did that swim glitch to get here, one of the 2 hatches is not open because the game doesn't know I, you know, did this, so normally you would have to open this door to get in. So I'm just gonna open it up here. I lose about 6 to 8 seconds because of that. While at the same time as I'm doing that, I'm gonna pick up the PSG-1T, which is the non-lethal variant of the PSG-1 sniper rifle that I acquired earlier in Strut F. It is gonna be used for the sniping section coming up, where Emma is gonna be trying to go along these fence bridges in the Strut L perimeter area. And you'll notice that Emma is kind of she's kind of taking on water, but it's okay. You know, you only have to surface once, and provided you get here quickly enough, she can withstand it. You know, you don't need to surface more than once. And since Emma has this fear of bugs, we're just telling her, listen, Emma, we ain't got time for this, so we're just gonna forcefully get you into the elevator. And just, I'll have you know, no Emmas were harmed in the making of this submission video. I mean, she's perfectly fine. You know, we're just aggressively getting her over her fear of bugs. So, now we're back on the first floor of Shell 2. Guards are posted in here this time. So we're following a specific pathing, which is meant to buffer our movement relative to the guard's patrol pattern. Where did this guard come from? I've been playing this game for years, and I still have no idea where they came from, because unless if somebody saw them in the water somewhere, I say that it's magic.
Freeze!
Or who knows, maybe he had one of those, like, stealth camouflage devices that only he had access to. Alright, so we're just gonna hold this guy up for safety. And what I'm gonna do here is a minor optimization tactic called the Emma bump, which is where you line her up to the door like so, and then you push her through the door as you enter. And what this does is, because you push Emma through the door as you load into it yourself, you're allowing Emma to spawn a little bit further down the hallway versus, you know, dragging her through the door traditionally. The difference being, you know, you move at full speed doing the Emma bump. When you regroup with her, it's the same thing. Versus going through normally, it just saves you maybe like 3 seconds, you know, one method over the other. So the Coolant Spray doubles as a fire extinguisher, apparently. So we're using it to blow out half this fire, not the whole thing. And one thing you might be wondering is, who in the world spotted you, and why is there nothing happening? Well, he's kind of stuck. So the reason for the chaff usage as I did is so that this guy is stuck in a loop where, I don't know, I mean, maybe he's just doing his leg day exercises. Okay, that was rude of that guy. I mean, I swear, some of these guards just don't know that I was doing submissions today. But that's just demonstrating why that room acts the way it does. You know, the guard is posted along a railing, and when he notices you without the use of the radio, and he tries to relocate to call for help, he just gets stuck. You know, it's one of the comical parts of the run that I enjoy seeing when I was learning this, is just watching that guy get stuck. Okay, so that is the end of dragging Emma around. We're now starting the Stretta oil fence sequence where it's mostly auto-scroller. Emma is going to be now walking along these tight water bridges, which were meant to provide cover fire so she can make it through unharmed without any delay. And to add to the mix, you have a set of claymores that you have to dispose of, since any claymore she runs into is an insta-death, and we don't want that. So while she makes her way over, we're just gonna do some prep work with taking out guards, 2 ciphers in the open, and getting ready for the first set of guards that Emma is gonna be going up against. And the reason why I'm positioning myself here is not just out of angle preference, but there's a weird bug in the game where if you're positioned too close to Emma when she's walking along the bridge, there's a chance that she can trip and fall over and lose balance. It loses 6 seconds every time it happens. Likewise, if you zoom in with your sniper rifle anywhere near Emma, it produces the same opportunity for her to lose balance. Not really sure why it's a thing, but what we found is that by, you know, mostly hovering around this location where the thermal goggles are, it minimizes the risk of Emma, you know, falling over. You know, because, like I said, it may be auto-scroller, but every time a guard sees her, or if a cipher spots her and she gets shot and she stops in place, those are time losses you do not want to get. Alright, so now we got another guard coming up, which these guards up here, as well as other locations, they do vary on difficulty. On European Extreme, you do get the most number of guards, like, per, like, bridge section. So while she's making her way over to the next part, I'm just gonna take out these mines. And that particular mine right there is very tricky to dispose of because it's partially obscured. And standing here on top of this ammo box is part of my visual markers, so I know where it's safe to stand and still have line of sight to be able to hit that mine. It's definitely a mine that I can imagine some people missed when they were playing this. And it's very easy to forget these mines. And I just have very bad experience from forgetting to destroy these mines, let me tell you. It's definitely not something I want to relive again. You know, because if once wasn't enough, I mean, you know, 2 or 3 times should have been it, but that's just part of speedrunning. So, again, I'm just taking out these guards as they appear. I just memorized the timing of when they normally would show up. And you'll notice that I'm just spamming my shots with the tranquilizer. You don't need to be as fruitful with the... or frugal. That's the word I was looking for. You don't need to be as frugal with the ammo, because for every time you're at 5 bullets like this, the ammo box will spawn. And for every time you're on that box, like so, you're instantly reloaded and refilled with 5 more bullets. And so we use this to our advantage with not only being... this is a good spot to be in, but at the same time, you get like this endless supply of ammo. And the potassiumines are used for gaining steady aim for 30 seconds. They do stack. So at times you may see me use multiples at once, which is used in anticipation of, you know, having an area where I'm going to be sniping quite a bit. Alright, so we got 2 more ciphers, which includes this one, plus 1 more. I felt like I missed a guard. No? Okay, maybe I'm just losing my mind. I thought I missed a guard, because normally I leave a set of 5 rounds to trank a final guard that shows up. Alright, so Pliskin calls in late. Or, actually, no, he's not Pliskin anymore. He's actually Snake. I know, shocker. So he calls in saying, hey, I'm here. If you need help, just call me and I'll give you backup. Meaning every time you scope in on something, Snake will try to shoot it for you, but, you know, we don't need his help. I mean, we got this under control, and, you know, I'm just kind of interested of what Snake is thinking right now.
More. Do I need to clear things with Otacon before I ask her out?
Snake, you know we're recording for GDQ, right?
Just a little more.
I think Snake is focusing on something else.
Do I need to clear things with Otacon before I ask her out?
Wait, didn't he just ask that? Yeah, Snake is, let's just say distracted. So, you saw me pop 2 of the potassiumines, which carry over through that cutscene skip, while having my PSG-1 emptied on purpose, which is a faster setup to, you know, Trink Vamp to death. You know, we aim at the leg because Vamp's hitbox is... doesn't really have any cooldowns. You can hit him as many times as you have ammo. But since the PSG-1T is 5 rounds per clip, we're limited on how many shots we can get at once. Although shooting in the leg doesn't do much damage per shot, aiming at the head, however, would do more, but for every time he gets hit, he moves his body around. And it's not really as ideal for a quick setup.
It's the end.
So that's why we just opt out of that and just, you know, go for spamming the leg. We use our final chaff, which is meant to bypass all these ciphers, while cartwheeling over the same bridge that I left from earlier. So again, it's gotta be very cautious about which panels were lost. You know, because the last thing you want to do is enter that bridge blind and then fall through the water. Because I'm sad to say that I've lost big boss runs because of that, where I made the mistake of not looking ahead before I cartwheeled over. So now, we're in the final phase of the game, which is now an arsenal gear.
It's been a while, hasn't it? Jack the Ripper.
Wait, who is this guy? I don't know him. I know this guy, though.
You know this fellow?
In fact, I remember this room.
You've grown.
It looks familiar. Oh, wait, hey, hold it. I'm just doing commentary, man. Relax.
Have they altered your memory, too?
Oh, wait. Oh, that's right. I don't have to do anything. Again, that's just a staged, like, tutorial cutscene that teaches you to resist the, you know, Solidus strangling. However, there's a second one where it really matters. The one that on this difficulty is infamously known for how long it is.
Brace yourself.
Yeah, that's just Olga giving us a congratulatory punch to the gut. Saying, wow, congrats for making it this far. Let me punch you in the gut and remove a third of your health. So, normally you would get a call from Rose, which, again, is just required to advance the game. But we're just gonna call her ourselves. It's faster. You don't have to wait for the auto prompt. But as you can tell, we're missing everything. I mean, if you thought the beginning of the plant was challenging, I mean, let me introduce you to Arsenal Gear Giganum, which has guards outfitted in Tengu gear with P90 SMGs, and I have a whole lot of nothing but guts. So, we're gonna go up to this upper level, which is part of this route to skip all the guards and 2 of these cameras, while carefully cartwheeling across that bridge. That jump is scarier than it looks. Staying underneath the blind spot of that camera. Cartwheel into that guard, and then likewise just enter the next room. So, we're now in the ascending colon, where we're now waiting for a callback from Rose, which we're just listening to the Colonel kind of going on about weird things, you know, because per the story at this point, the virus they tried to upload from Emma's program is like partially uploaded, but we're starting to see some of the effects of it where Colonel just starts saying some weird things. Something about, you know, the return of Ginola, Scissor 61, and something about, like, you know, seeing me on an afternoon somewhere. I don't know, it's really bizarre. So, we're now regrouped with Snake in his outfitted gear. Looking very sharp today, Snake. We finally got all of our stuff back, and we now have the high-frequency blade, which we're gonna use just briefly while we're just stuck in this hallway for a bit. It's mainly a timer, so that as long as you swing the weapon at least once while waiting in this upper half section, you just wait out the timer. It's basically a tutorial of like, hey, here's a sword, here's how to use it. Have fun with it. But we're not going to use it until the end of the game. But until now, we're just gonna, you know, chill out here, get ready for one of 2 sequences, which, conventionally speaking, on a speedrun are probably the scariest parts to go through. Because this sequence coming up with the Tengu 1 guard rush is where a lot of my runs go to die. So I'm gonna try to do this as I explain it. So I'm gonna start by throwing this stun grenade at this first group while taking a couple of hits, intentionally. As that detonates, they will all get knocked out temporarily, giving me time to move forward, and thus stacking one stun to the next. Okay, this is... Oh, this is not good. Yeah, I'm dead. Yo, Dave's Gaming, thank you for the host, dude.
Are you all right?
Alright, so one of my stuns was thrown a little bit late. So I'm gonna try that again. Because, I don't know, didn't really work out for me. So I'm gonna try it again, take some damage. Oh, that is bad. Okay, I'm gonna try to back this up. Whew, okay. So, there's a lot that happened there. So, I was using these stuns to basically clear the way so I can make it to that door. And what I just did was a door glitch where as long as you're standing flat up against a door based on the camera that's provided, and you go into first person and start a punch kick while letting go of that camera as you turn into the door with that kick, it allows you to clip through the door and exit the encounter, and you don't have to fight all the Tengus that are involved. It takes way too long. And we're gonna do something similar to that, but we're gonna borrow this Tengu swordsman for a moment. So what we're gonna do here is another skip, where we're gonna take this Tengu from the first wave and choke him up to 9 times from when we first grab him. And by doing this, it's gonna delay his knockout time, where it's gonna confuse the game as to, you know, wondering like, well, why did this Tengu from wave 1 live for so long, even though Snake is going through like the whole like army of them. So we go up to 9 times like so, and we're just gonna gradually grab and release him because you do not want to choke him more than 9 times, because on the 10th choke, you will actually break his neck and will not make the skip work. You need him to live, I think it's around like 1.5 minutes. Something around there, where you need this Tengu to live for as long as possible. So I'm actually doing this guy a favor, because Snake, on the other hand, he's just, you know, he's just kind of having fun with him. You know, he's got the infinite ammo, he's got the M4. Meanwhile, I'm just hanging around with this guy. You know, just giving him some light snuggles. Okay, I guess he didn't like the snuggles anymore, but... Now, you'll notice that the alert bar is going to start to fade. And even though we didn't clear out all 128 Tengus, what happened was the game noticed now a Tengu from wave 1 was just knocked out so late into the encounter that it just doesn't know how to process it, so it thinks, okay, something happened, it shouldn't be, so we're just gonna end the encounter. And doing that saves you at least, you know, 5 to 6 minutes of having to fight these Tengus normally. And on European Extreme, it's not something you want to do.
A simulated Solid Snake shaped by VR regimen. Sound like...
Yeah, we were just having a tea party. You know, we were just trying to get to know each other, and, you know, I guess he just didn't want any more of it.
But I've made use of you, and their plan too.
So this part is scripted. Solidus just kind of goes through his speech. We're just chilling out here until we start the last, you know, multi-unit encounter, which is the Metal Gear Rays. On difficulties, the number of the number of rays you have to take out varies. On very easy, it's 3, and on this one, it's 20. You have to take out 20 rays, or rather, the damage equivalent of 20 rays. So I'm gonna focus for part of this, but I'm gonna explain at the beginning what's going on. So we're gonna start by hitting each ray in the leg and then in the mouth. Since every time you hit them in the leg, it opens their mouth for a full critical shot. And we're doing this to each one, going from middle, right, and then left, and then doing this twice. And we're gonna shoot this ray a 3rd time while shooting a 2nd one to the head off screen. We do this to bait out a water cannon, which is an open headshot to do damage, thus killing that ray. Next, we kill the other ray on this side while carefully taking out this 3rd ray. And we're doing this in a specific way where we're going to try to obtain a loop, which is trying to control the rays in such a way based on spawn location and behavior. So each ray is going to jump up on stage while I'm going to do damage to another ray off screen. And I'm going to rotate like this throughout the entire thing until it's over. And so each ray that comes on stage has a pattern where it will always allow the ray with the lowest health to jump on stage first. Depending on a few exceptions, but again, since we're kind of hovering around this part of the platform, we're using this to our advantage just based on where the rays come in. As you can see in the background, there's a whole line of them. So we know at least generally where they're going to come from. Alright, so that one ray did get away from me, but it's not the end of the world. we're just gonna let that one move around a little bit while focusing on this one. And so the whole idea of looping these rays is so that it makes it less likely they're gonna go rogue, where it turns into a free-for-all. Meaning they surround the platform, they start using missiles and a whole bunch of other things that you don't want in this encounter. And this loop, I believe, was developed by a speedrunner by the name of Azu and was refined by D-Lines13, who was able to take the loop that was done and make it a little bit more consistent. You know, better understanding the mechanics of the rays, you know, how to loop them and, you know, maintain positioning and better understand, like, how and why the loop works. And when it comes to rays, you know, D-Lines is probably one of the best people when it comes to doing this fight because he just loves this encounter. Out of everything else in MGS2, he loves doing these ray fights. Where for most other people, this is pretty intimidating. You know, you got a lot of rays to go through, you don't have a whole lot of HP, and this loop is easy to lose, but it makes the encounter a lot easier once you have it. Because as you can see, two of these rays are kind of staggered next to each other, and that's part of what this loop does, is it kind of controls where they are, anticipating where they come in on stage. And you only have to get ammo every once in a while once you need it. And so part of looping it like this is so you just have more control. Because control is something you definitely want when it comes to fighting these rays. Alright, so I made a little bit of a mistake there, so I'm just gonna deviate a little bit to try to salvage this. I'm gonna shoot this ray in the head. Hitting a ray in the head while it's closed only does partial damage of what's, you know, considered like critical. So you always want to try to get a open mouth headshot whenever possible. Whether if it's hitting the leg to the mouth or baiting out a water cannon like this. You gotta be very careful when doing that maneuver because the water cannons, like everything else the rays can do, are one-hit KOs. And same thing with that missile that ray just fired. But at the end of the world, we're just gonna try to loop it off of these two instead, while letting that third ray just kind of, you know, move around for a little bit. So we're just gonna start doing damage between these two rays instead. Just try to buy myself time and, you know, prevent them from firing missiles. That's really the only thing I'm trying to obtain is, yeah, not that. So, on the bright side, the missiles have a very poor tracking, so you can dodge them. But I'm all for making things easier. So, for the most part, that was an okay ray encounter. Not exactly perfect, but it gets the point across. So, we're back up in Arsenal gear. Everybody's invited to the party, including Ray, by the way. And this is the one from the tanker, not the mass production models.
Squeeze the answers out of you instead, my son.
And now, this is the part of the run that I think most people dislike when it comes to this difficulty. Because, fun fact, on Metal Gear Solid 2 Sons of Liberty European Extreme, this torture segment lasts for over a minute. On Metal Gear Solid 2 Substance, which is what I'm playing, it lasts for 50 seconds on this difficulty. HD Collection nerfed this down to 15 seconds, and the intensity is not as severe as what I'm going through now. Yeah, we're just having a nice staring contest of that as I mash for my life. Oh!
Raiden, what's going on? Raiden!
Oh, I just missed it. Yeah, this is really hard to do, and I just did this earlier in a run. So, I'm gonna try something a little different.
The Arsenal AI is corrupted beyond repair. I admit that I underestimated you.
Wow, did I really have 1/10 of a second left? I mean, that's how vicious this category is.
I'll squeeze the answers out of you instead, my son.
Alright, so we're gonna try this again. So now you kind of see firsthand why the HD collection nerfed this.
Right. Is something wrong?
Man.
Right. Right.
Man, this is just not being kind to me today, is it? Alright. Third time's the charm. We'll get past this.
Are you awake yet, Jack? GW, the Arsenal AI is corrupted beyond repair. I admit that I underestimated you.
Well, I definitely underestimated how hard this was going to be today.
I'll squeeze the answers out of you instead, my son.
There we go.
You know he doesn't know anything.
It's not him I want the answers from.
So we'll just pretend that I got that on first try, but yeah, I definitely dislike that part of it with running this category, but I do like it at the same time just for the, you know, the thrill of the challenge. But from a casual perspective, matching for 50 seconds like that is definitely not as appealing. Which is why in HD Collection they nerfed it to what it is. But now we're going on to the last fight of the game, which is now against Solidus, while in the meantime, the AI Colonel, who was kind of talking about strange stuff, kind of tells us who he really is, you know, about the Patriots and GW, but more on this fight, which is, we're now up against Solidus, which I didn't really start exactly proper, but we're gonna try to make this right. So, we're gonna make him block, which is gonna make him do a kick. I'm gonna do another 2 hits to make him block on his left side. And what I'm doing here is I'm looping him using his right eye, which is now missing. Since now it is a blind spot, where as long as I make him block like this, I can rinse and repeat these set of punches that I'm doing until he reaches the phase 2, which is about less than 50% of his stamina gauge. And so what we're doing here is, like, we're kind of forcing a kick mechanic to happen because of these blocks, while at the same time we move over to his blind spot, you know, thus, you know, doing this loop.
Good work, Jack. But this is where it gets interesting.
Alright, so now he's getting serious. You know what? He's ditching the gimmick. No longer using the Doc Ock arms. Just full-on swordplay. So, what I just did there is, like, as he charged me, is what I refer to, like, as a parry. Meaning, even though Solidus is zipping across the level, if you time your sword swipe or a stab at the right time, you can actually either block his charge from hitting you, thus giving you an opportunity to re-loop him. If you're also lucky, you can actually stagger him off balance and get a free hits on him. It's RNG on what he does. But the parry method is very risky. Most other times you'll see people go for a block instead with a elbow charge, which in the MGSR community referred to as the people's elbow, you know, which is the elbow that most runners seek out whenever fighting Solidus like this. So we just keep doing this until the last hit. Okay, we wanted to give him a little bit of a chance to hit me there, but that is time on the last fight, which is a 117.26. And given the way things panned out,
This is where we first
I would say this is fair to give it a realistic estimate of what I had in mind of 1 hour 20 minutes. It basically assumes the worst, whether it be, you know, dying to raise, Tengu's complications, dying to the torture multiple times. Unfortunately, this was far from a big boss run, but it's something that I was really happy to present to you. I've been playing Metal Gear Solid 2 for years, but I've been speedrunning this and the console versions for about 2 years. And before I kind of end things out for this submission, I just want to shout out the MGSR speedrunning community. You know, all the love and support. Can't be thanked enough for, you know, showing me games like this and how to be better at it. Also, shout outs to you, the viewer, for watching this submission, and of course the AGDQ review staff. If this is to your liking, I would be more than happy to have this game get into AGDQ 2021 coming up, but until then, I look forward to providing other games for my submissions list, which I have Metal Gear Solid 3 on console and Metal Gear Solid 4 on console to follow up with this. But until next time, enjoy the rest of your day, and thanks so much for watching this submission video.